Everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. You're here for our live webinar, The Customer Always in the Room, where we're going to be talking about how you can move from owning voice of customer to facilitating it while still maintaining your expert control. So the chat is open now. It'll be open throughout the webinar as well. We'd love to get to know you. So please do pop a message in. Let us know who you are, what your role is, where you're joining from. And since it's Pancake Day, we're going to have a bit of fun, and we'd love to know what your topping is for your pancakes. We've been having a debate at Wordnerds. I feel like lemon and sugar, the classic, has come out on top already. Personally, I'm going to go for a white chocolate and raspberry variation tonight, for something different. But yeah, give us some inspiration, settle the debate, let us know. While everyone else is joining and we're getting to know you in the chat, I'll just introduce our speakers for today as well. So I'm Zoe, I'm your customer success manager. I work with customers at Wordnerds across a range of different industries to help them get value from using the Wordnerds platform. Today, we've also got our CEO and co-founder, Pete. Pete spends the majority of his life talking to CX and insights professionals and is especially invested in what best-in-class voice of customer programs look like, and also how Wordnerds can be a valued partner in these. And then we've also got Izzie, who is our product manager. Izzie is really on the front line of developing the Wordnerds platform, especially leading on our newest release of definition-led themes and also how we can integrate with Power BI. So Izzie's going to be sharing a lot of that expertise today, including a live demo. We've also got the wonderful Katie, who will be in the chat today, just talking to you all. Katie's our customer success executive, so do let her know that you're here in the chat as well. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping things, so please do continue with the intros in the chat. I'm also just going to bring up a poll, which hopefully everyone can see now. Just to frame the discussion for today, we'd love to know where you're at with voice of customer and sharing this in your organization. So there's just a few options there around ranging from having an interactive voice of customer dashboard, which is accessible across your organization, to perhaps even just voice of customer being siloed in individual departments, maybe even manual tagging. Let us know where you're at, and I'll share the results of that shortly, just so we can see the variation across everyone who's here on the webinar today. Or if none of those resonate and it's something else, let us know that in the chat as well. We'll be doing a live Q&A at the end, so we'll cover all those questions, but if anything comes to you as we're going through the content, please pop the questions in the chat and we'll bring those up to answer them with our expert panel. Just a quick note that Izzie will be doing the demo, as I mentioned. Anything that you see data-wise on the screen today is all publicly available data. And we're also recording this session, so we'll share that directly afterwards, so you have the chance to review it or share it with any colleagues that couldn't make it today as well. So thank you everyone in advance for spending the next hour of your lives with us. We know that time is precious and we definitely appreciate that. So we just wanted to start by framing a bit around what you'll get out of the time with us today. So we're going to start off with some theory in terms of the continuous improvement approach, where this comes from and why it actually matters for voice of customer programs to help with the framing. In the middle section, we'll move from that theory into practice, and we'll look at how you can actually build this system using Wordnerds to turn insights into action, centralizing data, making this available across your organization, and really empowering your stakeholders to take that action. That will include the demo, where we'll show you in practice what that actually looks like. And then we'll finish off by focusing on what this actually enables you to do, kind of that real piece around why you would make the time to invest in setting up this change in your business as well. And then, of course, we've got the Q&A for anything that we would like to finish up there. So in terms of starting this off, I'm going to refer to a story which some people might be familiar with. So Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, would famously mandate that an empty chair should be present in every Amazon meeting. This empty chair represents the customer, and the idea is that it acts as a reminder that the customer should be at the center of all decisions which are made. So it's really focusing on that customer-centric perspective. As voice of customer nerds, we are fans of this idea, but there is a bit of a problem. That being that the customer isn't actually there. This is just executives in a boardroom making assumptions about what they think the opinions of the customer are. And I've popped a quote on the side there from Jeff himself, where he says, we would think about what kind of opinions the customer might have or how decisions in the meeting will affect the customer. But there's nothing about bringing that real customer voice, customer data into this thinking. So the question then becomes, how can you actually do this? How can you build that structure where real voice of customer data is in every room, constantly being referred to drive those real decisions? We're going to unpack that in our model today. So before that, let's take a bit of a look at why the old structures can't quite support this approach. So, for example, if your voice of customer program at the moment has this more linear approach, it might look something like this. So, when you're focused more on owning voice of customer, it might be that you first collect that customer feedback. Your insights team then set out to categorize and analyze the feedback. They then go on to produce some kind of presentation, so perhaps a PowerPoint deck, and that is then just shared with stakeholders. So this isn't necessarily bad, it's just not doing that job of putting the customer in every room. Instead, it's putting the customer in certain inboxes of certain people, and others are either completely ignorant to these great insights or it's unclear and they're receiving lots of noise from lots of different places. When we look a bit deeper at the underlying challenges of this model, there's a few that we can point out at each of these different stages. So firstly, siloed data. Different teams might own different data sources, or the feedback could even be trapped in a single department. Next, when we look at your insights team, they are likely amazing, doing a lot with limited resource. But what then happens when the volume of insights requests that they receive outweighs their bandwidth? They become an unintentional bottleneck to sharing voice of customer. Also sitting with your insights team is the analysis piece. However, the analysis starts with this pile of messy data, which then needs to be consistently categorized. If you use different technology in different departments to actually do this job, or even if you have generic categorization models to do this, it's going to result in a lack of clarity, consequent lack of confidence in the analysis that you're actually sharing. Next, when we move into presenting the insights, you're doing this to a stakeholder group which are operating with years of experience and underpinning their roles. This is going to bring brilliance, but also some certain preconceptions, which might even be unconscious. So, for example, before they ask a question, they will likely be looking for information to confirm assumptions that they already have in their brain. For example, if they are looking to solve a particular problem, they've probably also already started to come up with a solution to that without even potentially fully understanding that problem. So this means you're already fighting some confirmation bias. And if the insights aren't at their fingertips from the start, this is going to be completely natural for them to do. And finally, there's a constant risk of what we like to call having a feedback graveyard. So if this process is linear, the insights become the outcome at the end of the line. And really, they should only be the start of the story. So with this in mind, we want to look today at how we can take this linear model and make it even better to move to a facilitation approach, ensuring that customer feedback moves from this departmental intelligence to real strategic infrastructure where the customer is really in every room. So before I hand over to Pete, I'm just going to quickly look at the results of the poll, which hopefully everyone is able to see in the chat. And interestingly, I can see that we've got a real mix of answers in terms of where everyone's up to. So someone at each and every stage that we've actually talked about, from that siloed feedback to static reports, to some of the people who have got this live interactive voice customer dashboard implemented. So really keen to hear as we go through the webinar today, if this approach resonates, if it's something that people can see really embedding in their organization who are perhaps in that siloed approach at the moment. And hopefully this will start to resonate and prove some ideas for thought in terms of how to implement this approach. So I will hand over to Pete now to take it from here.
Thanks, Queen. Before I start, I want to go to Sophie's house for tea. Cheese and Marmite on pancakes. What an absolute pervert. I love it. So yeah, before I kind of get too far into this, I think I just want to take a little step back and explain to a lot of you all on the call today. I know that you're all customers of ours. Some of our thinking about how we've kind of arrived at this journey towards continual improvement, towards facilitation, and the kind of journey that we've been on. And I think it starts about 2 years ago, where we started to see a shift in the maturity in voice of customer, where prior to that time, the problems that people had were very much kind of, oh my God, we're drowning in data. We don't know what our customers are telling us. And the race was very much to, using technology to sort of analyze all this stuff at scale and make sense of just the text that people are telling them. I think what we found was then there was a kind of a bit of a progression towards, okay, we're not drowning in data anymore. Now we've got insights, but we've still got loads and loads of insights, and we still don't really kind of know what we're doing with the insights. And then finally, probably 18 months, 2 years ago, we started saying to people, people were using the platform, they were getting really good results from it, and they were like, look, the insights are great. What I'm less sure about is our ability to actually do meaningful things with them. And at that point, that's valueless to us. There's no point in you just telling us things that we haven't fixed yet. We don't know how to fix those. And it's this idea of data to insights to action. And we are not consultants. We don't go into people's businesses and tell them how they can improve the actual operational side of what they do. But we do believe we have a role to play in that process by lining things up the right way. So when we were met with this problem, we started to look at the idea of how do you turn insights into continuous improvement in an organization. And being the dull, nerdy people that we are with no social life, we went to the library and read lots of books about continuous improvement and where we've already seen that in industry. And the stuff that we found that we were really interested in was all of the stuff that came out of the automotive industry in the sort of post-war era, particularly the 70s and the 80s, the stuff that was started off by W. Edwards Deming and was really popularized by Shigeo Shingo at Toyota. And I'm sure you guys have all heard of Sigma 6 and the various kind of total quality management ideas that came out of automotive. And we got really interested in how they went from situations where quality in factories was hit and miss to something where it became a really vital part of everything that they did, and the business transformation process that delivered that. And what we found was really interesting. We found that there were 7 key principles that we believe are really transferable from quality in car manufacturing to customer experience and voice of customer in the modern insights team. And you can see them on the screen there. And let me just take a second to explain what we mean by each of these 7 pillars. So strategic basically just means customer centricity as a fundamental component of the organization's long-term roadmap. So voice of customer being prioritized in every product and service interaction, in every meeting, that thing that Jeff Bezos was trying to do by having the seat there for the customer. If something is to be strategic, it also needs to be data-driven. We need to replace gut feel and opinion with data-driven insights from both qual and quant feedback. And in order to be data-driven, data has to be integrated and accessible to people. That situation that Zoe spoke about, where data is siloed, where maybe marketing owns social data and customer experience owns complaints, and your team that works on your app gets app chat and all of that kind of thing. We have to get rid of that. And we need a single source of truth that everybody can access. People knows where it is and they can get that stuff. When you've got data integrated, you also need it to be transparent. You need to share how that data is processed, how it's classified, how it's been interpreted, crucially, and then what actions are being taken from that data. And that transparency needs to be both internal and external. Your colleagues need to know what everybody's doing at every stage, but also so do your customers, because it's only when it's shared and everybody knows what's going on that people can really have confidence in the actions that are being taken. It needs to be employee-led. So one of the things we're going to be talking about today is about how customer insight isn't any longer the domain of the insights team, or it shouldn't be. It should be used to empower frontline staff to lead change. And if that's going to happen, it then also needs to be process-centered. So it can't be the domain of a few radical customer experience fundamentalists. It needs to be the output of repeatable, optimized workflows that are built into the fabric of the way that your system operates. And then finally, it needs to be agile, not in the kind of flexible sense that agile is often used, but in the purest sense of agile. So this idea that this needs to be the part of a process that embraces interactive, incremental changes and feedback loops. So the idea is you look at something in the data, you come up with a hypothesis, you run a test, you get a feedback loop by looking at the data again. Has that made it better? Has it made it worse? And then you change what you've done in light of that data that you're going. And by running these agile feedback loops, you basically work out whether the activity that you're taking has made a problem better or hasn't changed it or made it worse. And we thought that was really interesting. We were we read a ton about this stuff, and we started to think about what we would need to change in the way that we delivered our service as Wordnerds, our product as Wordnerds, in order to facilitate this move towards something that empowers teams to embrace continual improvement. And in terms of how we kind of delivered that, we went back to Deming's idea of the plan, do, check, act cycle. So this agile loop of doing things, analyzing them, and getting feedback. And we looked at what that actually means for somebody in an insights team working with customer experience data in the kind of modern era. And what we decided was, I can't move the slide. That's not what we decided. We decided that it starts with the kind of the data piece, and the first thing that anybody has to do is the kind of the getting the data in the right place. This idea of it being centralized, it being accessible. So firstly, bringing in all of the different sources where customers are speaking to you, and it's a theme that Izzie's going to pick up on in a few minutes. But standardizing it both in terms of the data that you have, or all of the same things being called the same name, coming from different data sources, but also in terms of the methodologies being used. In the nightmare scenario that Zoe painted at the start of this conversation, we often see some people looking at a particular software platform and the sentiment analysis on that, and different teams looking at different platforms and the sentiment analysis on that. The methodologies are different, they're not comparable. And again, it's a theme Izzie's going to return to later on. So our first job as insights professionals is to bring all of that stuff together. After which we can then do the kind of the checking thing. What's that data telling us? And for us, that's again in two parts. There's the analysis piece, which is categorization in the first instance. And as many of you will know, we've had a fundamental change in the way that we deliver categorization. We've moved from what was context themes, where people would go and tick or put crosses next to things that they did or didn't want in data sets, to something that's a lot quicker and a lot more transparent. And again, we'll be talking about that in a minute. The second part of the analysis piece, once we've categorized things, is the prioritization piece. Even great categorization just gives you lots of things that your customers are telling you. And for this stuff to be truly useful, we need to look at, we go back to the beginning, the plan, what your objective is, what it is that you're trying to solve. We need to be looking at what is the feedback that we're getting that's going to move the needle on these things that that you're trying to do. The second bit in the checking phase is democratization. The idea that basically we're taking this stuff and we're putting it in the hands of the employees, the colleagues in your organization, closest to the customer, closest to the systems, and crucially closest to the data so that they can act on it. And we will return to this in a moment. Before we move into the next phase, which is the action bit. And this is probably the bit that we weren't thinking about a couple of years ago, but we are thinking about much more. And the best practice that we see in really advanced teams that are doing great work is their ability to get this information that we're getting from customer insights, from customer feedback, and then turn it into some kind of test. And when I say test, I mean minimum viable test. We think our data is telling us this. What is the smallest possible thing we can do to change something to see whether or not that's something that we can improve? And if we can run that test, if we can effectively co-create this with our customers, if we can speak to other people in the organization, if other people in the organization can have these conversations without us and design some interactions, some changes, some ameliorations that are going to make that problem better and start running those, that's great. We then measure that as we go back around this loop. And win, lose, or draw, the final stage is communicate. This only works if you're constantly speaking to everybody inside of the organization and outside saying, hey, look, we surveyed you, you said this, we took that to mean this, we therefore did that, we've run that now, and we've seen that more of you are now saying this. And if you can create that virtuous cycle, what we're finding is people don't expect you to be perfect. People know that there are problems in every industry and that there are all kinds of constraints all around us. But people really appreciate it when they see that people are making genuine efforts to make things better. And often that's all they want. And when you get to the end of the loop, you look again at your objective, and that can be a big objective like, our KPI is stopping customer churn, or our big organizational issue is improving customer experience, but whatever it is. Or it can be something really small, like, I work at the front line of an operations thing and I want to make sure there's more soap in the toilets of trains, whatever it is. It needn't be big or it needn't be small, it can be anywhere in between. But then you can kind of reassess whether that's still a priority. And if it is, keep going around that loop. And that's what begins to deliver this kind of continuous improvement thing. And when we thought about it, we thought what was interesting about this was the pivot around the kind of the democratization piece, because there's kind of always been this unspoken assumption that insights teams should own voice of customer, that you guys are the gatekeepers, that stakeholders come to you with requests, that you produce analysis, you produce reports, you tell them what to do. But we think that model's changing, and not because insights teams aren't good at what they do, but because of the volume of data. Customers speak everywhere now. They're across surveys, complaints, social media, just all of this stuff is coming in all the time. Decision-making needs to be much faster. Waiting for quarterly reports is no longer feasible. The value of customer feedback is inversely proportional to latency. The quicker you get it in, the more valuable it is. By the time you've analyzed last quarter's survey, problems have either been resolved or they've escalated to a crisis point. You already know about them. So stakeholders want to investigate this stuff themselves. They don't want to wait for you to confirm their hypotheses. So the counter move here is it's not to defend your territory and dig your heels in and take a greater control over this process. It's to facilitate access. It's to do the opposite. It's to democratize that learning. And it means letting customers speak in their own voice, not forced in your surveys. It means taking it wherever they're speaking. It means not weighting channels. There's no point in doing survey responses are more valuable to us than social or complaints or anything like that. People will tell you different things in different places depending on who they are. But it means gathering that stuff consistently, analyzing it robustly, and then democratizing it. And it means that you're letting stakeholders kind of investigate for themselves, and voice of customer doesn't become something that they request anymore. It's just always there. It's always milling around their brains. So it's no shame when somebody finds out that they found a customer insight without kind of telling you. That's like the whole point. And I think a lot of people are worried that if they're not telling people the insights, they're not doing their job. But if you can let people find their own insights, it makes a massive shift, because your job isn't to know everything, it's to give people what they need. And we find that kind of when you start to think about it like that, a massive change happens. Because when people have to wait for insights reports, as Zoe sort of said, they've already developed their theory or their hypothesis in their heads. They've already developed a confirmation bias about that thing that they thought that they were going to do. And then the data becomes just an uncomfortable inconvenience. But when they've got access to understandable insight at their fingertips and they're confident about its veracity, they're much more likely to use customer feedback as the starting point, and always have that information and that thought process swimming in their heads. They're always thinking about that seat in the room, that empty seat that belongs to the customer. And you're making this a team sport. And by making action a team sport, you're increasing exponentially the amount of actions that colleagues can take, and you're massively accelerating the progress that you can make as an organization in terms of improving your customer experience. And that's the conclusion that we got to when we did this reading and thinking about continuous improvement and how it affects customer experience. So I'm going to hand back to Zoe, but when I do, I just want you to kind of bear all of that in your mind when you're seeing all of this stuff, because everything that we have done from a Power BI perspective, from a definition-led themes perspective, has all been in pursuit of this new world of insights and voice of customer, where we don't want people to come onto our platform. The insights team need to be there. They need to be making themes. This is the job for a few, so that activity can become the team sport of the many. Zoe.
Thanks, Pete. That was so interesting. I think really good to bring it to life with that theory behind it as well. And just before I hand to Izzie, just to quickly refer back to our poll, now we've had a few more answers. The most popular way of sharing voice of customer is currently coming out as insights team deal with individual requests, which I think really speaks to that point that you made around it's almost a bit of a paradox in that the better you are at your jobs, the more requests you get, the harder it gets to manage them all. And it's much more efficient to get this data out in front of the people that will be using it so they can investigate for themselves as well. So with that in mind, Izzie is going to talk us through how you can actually build this yourself, walking from centralizing the data to creating the categorizations all the way through to a BI demo. Thanks, Izzie.
Cool. Thanks, Zoe. And thanks, Pete, for that. I scribbled so much stuff down that I'd love to just like think about while presenting here and try and come back to it. I've got like pages over here, it's mad. But one thing that really stuck in my mind was with the TQM process that you talked about is I think it gives so much space to both employees and process in balance. And I think that's one of the reasons why this model works so well. And I say that because, as you were saying, in this like age of, data democratization, I think, speaking for myself, but maybe others, sometimes it feels like we can take 2 steps forward and 1 step back because we don't have that correct blend of process or rules of engagement for our people. That's just my kind of thought at the moment, but it's a lovely segue for me regardless, because I wanted to start my section by asking everyone, yes, I think it's all great that we are a data-driven generation. We have that people power, going back to TQM, but is everyone in the organization following the same rules of the road, or actually do we all have different processes for VOC? So to illustrate this, let me introduce 2 fictional personas that both work in the travel and hospitality industry, both focused on hotel guest experience, but each with very distinct roles. So first of all, we have Susie. Susie's in the growth team. She's focused on fixing any friction in the end-to-end customer journey, from booking through to arrival, hotel stay, and then to checkout, really in order to drive loyalty and retention of guests. Then we have Tom in the ops team. He's monitoring CX data for any issues that regularly lead to complaints. So he can mobilize teams ahead of escalations and kind of oversee incident management. So what we have here are 2 personas, both working in guest experience, both analyzing guest data. But spoiler, they have very different approaches to their analyses. So to contextualize this, and bear with me for a few minutes, here's a made-up conversation between Tom and Susie that is just meant to highlight, in a very exaggerated way, how different incongruences in our approaches, in our machines, can very quickly cause misalignment in our VOC programs. And Pete asked me to do different voices for each person. I just can't find it in me to do that. Maybe next time. But let's start with Susie. So let's say Susie says to Tom, hey, I ran our survey and social data through Copilot, and sentiment around breakfast is down 18% this month. To which Tom says, when I analyze surveys, I see a 6% drop. Lots of comments coming up about menus not being up to date. So here we see challenge number one, which is different data sources. We have Susie looking at social and surveys, Tom looking just at surveys. In fact, Tom isn't giving light to the fact that people leave feedback in many places, often where they're most comfortable, including tweeting about a poor breakfast. So already it's no wonder they've come to different conclusions, because they're looking at different volumes and very different data types. After this, Susie says, oh, I was looking at comments about food and drink at breakfast only, not the menus. Tom says he was looking at any mention of breakfast, from menus and wait time all the way through to seating and staff. And here we have challenge number two. We have different definitions of breakfast. So Tom's map is much broader than that of Susie. Again, it's getting even clearer why they aren't aligned on their insights and the outcomes. Finally, Susie says, okay, well, if we can agree on one definition of breakfast, then can you rerun your analysis? Yes, says Tom, but even with the same data and the same prompts, there's no guarantee that the AI will tag feedback the same way again. Also, I was using ChatGPT, not Copilot. And this is a huge problem that we see in VOC. Susie uses Copilot, Tom's using ChatGPT. And because these two different AI systems are non-deterministic, if each of them runs a prompt again and again, it will produce different results each time. And actually, between those two different proprietary algorithms, we're going to see even more variation. So there's actually no hope for repeated analysis to reach consistent conclusions. But also at the same time, there's no visibility of whether different data sources are weighed or treated the same, i.e., is a social data with like natural language and jargon managed the same as survey data? We don't know. It's all an AI black box. So what this conversation shows, albeit to the extreme, is that, again, these misalignments can stack up really, really quickly. And going back to, insights being a team sport, I think that, unfortunately, it really erodes our ability to make it a team sport, because very quickly, trust in VOC is eroded. Our trust in ourselves to present data defensively is eroded. And then I think it's natural that this pushes us to want to own an analysis versus kind of share it and facilitate it, because of fear of these inconsistent conclusions. And again, going back to Zoe's comment of the feedback graveyard, this is exactly what we want to avoid in today's era, where we have more data than ever, and more than ever a responsibility to honor feedback that people give us. Which leads me on again nicely to talk through why having this central methodology for CX analysis is so important in keeping that balance between people like Susie and Tom and their processes. So to do that, let me explain some more about the Wordnerds platform and how it helps tackle some of the challenges through themes. For those of you who are a bit less familiar with our software, themes are, in a nutshell, a custom classification model that you can create in the platform that will group your data according to the rules defined in that theme. So they can be about anything. They can be weird and wonderful and colorful, just like the Lego pieces in this diagram. In reality, you might think of something very practical, like themes about car parking that will match all verbatim you have that mentions car parking. They can be very broad, like comments about restaurant staff, regardless of whether it's breakfast, dinner, lunch, or it could even capture very nuanced social or emotional experiences, like guest felt ignored. So we have different layers of themes here already. Question one, so many types and nuances of themes. Well, how do themes build alignment across many different stakeholders in a VOC team? And the real beauty of this is that whether you apply a single theme to one data source, for example, social, or a mix of sources, social surveys and complaints, the theme works the same way every single time. So think of it like a repeatable and consistent program. That classification that you built is going to run identically, regardless of data source, and each time it's run. So that's a great foundation. Question 2 is, how does that then facilitate VOC teams to self-serve data and empower them to be, productive and autonomous? And this brings me on to another feature we have called frameworks. So all those themes, all those Lego pieces I just showed you are created and stored centrally in Wordnerds for everyone in your organization to interrogate. And it's from this central store that these themes can be handpicked and grouped and saved into filtered views that we call frameworks. In context, going back to Susie and the growth team, she might have a framework that only focuses on end-to-end customer journey. So from that big block of yellow bricks, she's going to pick everything that's blue, which is everything to do with the check-in process, which links to end-to-end journey. She might pick all the green Lego pieces, but actually the stuff around facilities, she's less bothered in. It's not part of her organizational end-to-end customer journey. Tom in Ops, though, he's looking at incident management. His framework might include things like room cleanliness, parking noise, one or two things from different categories that he can stack like Lego pieces, one on top of the other, to create his own custom framework. From here, when these two people open their Power BI, they can apply that framework with just a few clicks and filter all their visuals to just the themes in their framework and the ones that matter most to their job role, thereby removing all the noise of other departments and allowing them to actually deep dive into sentiment analysis, focused exclusively on this lens or this framework that they've built. Finally, Pete mentioned this already. For those of you who don't know, we did also recently launch our new feature called definition-led themes, which I won't go into in detail, but in a nutshell, uses some very clever AI mechanics to help you build a theme by providing and then refining a very clear definition. So earlier on, when Susie and Tom couldn't agree on breakfast, we have a similar theme in our demo project called Quality of Breakfast, where you can see here very clearly that from its definition, we want all sentiment about breakfast, good, bad, or neutral. But we want mentions that clearly have breakfast or food and exclude anything that's like general service, but not including food. Just spotted now a few typos in this definition. So let's make this a teaching moment. Actually, AI helpers here don't care about my typos. Regardless, it's going to go and find that theme and kind of, programmatically do that for me, despite me being a human who can't type words right sometimes. So in summary from this, the takeaways that I really want to drill down on are, number one, these centralized theme banks with clear definitions provide that single source of truth for VOC. And in having that centralized theme bank, you can create repeatable workflows for anybody in your organization that ensure the themes are applied consistently time and time again. And it's this combination of process there that enables your people to self-serve VOC so they can find and explore insights without feeling like afterwards they have to go and defend their data gathering process because actually they're pulling themes from the same pool as everyone else. And this is the mechanics of the continuous improvement machine in our platform as we see it. So let me just share my screen for a quick BI demo. Bear with me one moment. And Zoe, again, if you can tell me that you can see my screen, that'd be helpful, because I can't see you afterwards.
Just loading. Yeah, we've got it now.
Fab, thank you. So what I'm showing here, for anyone who's not seen our BIs before, is a specific page in our travel and hospitality industry templates called Journey Frameworks. So a few things that I've actually filtered the data down to the back end of the 2025-26 financial period for this demo, just because there's a lot of data in here and I want to keep it a bit more focused. And at the same time, I've applied this framework that's customer journey. So I want you to think about Susie again, working in the growth team, looking at friction in the end-to-end customer journey. And this is her framework applied to all the data in this page. One thing I didn't mention earlier, but now is a good time to mention it, is that yes, we have themes that you can train, but also in all the reviews and data you're uploading to Wordnerds, there's metadata within there. So a review might have a hotel type, a hotel name, a city. That's not unstructured feedback. Again, it's metadata, but we can also use these to create slices in your data. So yes, while looking at a top level framework, you can limit it down to, in this example, a certain hotel type. So what I'm going to do for now is just limit this down to package holiday, remove those lines here. So I'm only seeing the framework for package holidays. A few things I see straight away as Susie. I'm looking at quite a lot of volume, which is great. So in this financial period for Q1 and Q2 of this year, we've got a volume of just over 34,000, which means that actually for Susie in a growth role, this is great. It's like a 30,000 foot top-down view of all the themes, all the feedback relevant to her because she's looking at kind of systemic growth. Again, quite a lot of percentage, just over 40%. Good to know. And I can see the overall sentiment of my package holiday feedback is 78 and its star rating, which KPI is, this is the KPI we've kind of pre-coded for this, this customer. On this graph here, what I'm showing is on the y-axis, we have sentiment, and on the x-axis, we have different themes that Susie has gone and coded into categories in the Wordnerds platform. So stage 1 is any theme relating to booking and pre-arrival, stage 2, arrival and check-in, etc. And I can see there's actually more reviews that reference anything to do with booking and arrival or post-stay and retention because of the size of the bubble. But what I see straight away is that down here in rooms and suites, yes, it's a smaller bubble, less volume, but the sentiment for this part in my end-to-end journey for package holidays is really lowered. And clicking into it, it's 1% of my volume for this period. But again, in a growth CX role, I can start to think about there's probably very strong correlations between the overall journey sentiment and then retention down the line. So it's probably in Susie's interest to figure out what's happening here. I've clicked on this. It's pulled up a sentiment chart for all verbatim that references something in this category. Again, 51 for all of those. And actually, I can see here now all the themes that are grouped within rooms and suites. So various individual themes, each with their own definitions, bedroom quality, cleanliness, things like that. Some more nuanced ones on the right-hand side with less volume. But now I can kind of go to the stage of deep diving. So again, all my data just for the end-to-end journey, limited to package holidays, Susie's lens. Something is definitely happening in bedroom quality. I'm going to dive into these very negative sentiments here and drill through the verbatim. Number 1, straight away, TUI Hotel in Tenerife, hundreds of bed bugs. Yep, someone's definitely had a rubbish time with their accommodation. So now I can go through all the verbatim and see what I want to find and take that into further pages in BI if I feel inclined to do so. So that's a whistle-stop tour. Happy to answer more questions on this, but otherwise I'll hand back to Zoe.
Amazing, thank you, Izzie. I think that was a really great snapshot and just really illustrated the point that depending on who you are and what you want to see, as long as you've got those building blocks set up in terms of your themes, you can completely customize how that's going to come out in BI. Always a challenge doing a BI demo because there's so much you could show, but hopefully that helps to show that whatever you want to look at, just selecting a different framework gives you that completely customized view as well. So what we're going to wrap up with now before we come into the Q&A, so just a reminder to pop any questions that you have in the chat and we'll come to those at the end as well. Pete is just going to take us through a bit about what this enables in terms of moving from the more tactical to the strategic embedded infrastructure.
Thanks, Zoe. And yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? We've practiced this, 3 times now, and you only spot the typos in the live version. I absolutely love that. It was a great save. Yeah, so just a couple of things before we do the whole kind of what this enables you to do. I think it's just worth surfacing some anxieties around this. So we've been definition-led themes hit our beta testers, a few months ago, and we've been rolling out sort of Power BI dashboards probably for, a few months more than that now, probably a year or so. And we probably get three main questions at the start of this process. So the first is this one: I'm not an expert Power BI user. What if I read the data wrong and people think I can't do my job? This is an entirely reasonable apprehension. But what we would say to that is your job as an insights person is to provide the structure and the definitions. I love the Lego block analogy and this idea that they're different colors and they can be stacked in different ways. And as an insights team, you guys can decide what's in a Lego block and what's not, but also how those things are grouped together. And as Zoe and Izzie have made the point, for different people, they will be different things. This stuff has to be customizable. Otherwise, people won't self-serve if they're not seeing a view that makes sense to them. And it's your job to understand what views they need and organize that process so that you're building the kind of architecture there. You don't need to build any dashboards. That's our job. We have BI specialists in-house. Frankie is a wizard. She is amazing. And we can give those to you. What we're actually finding is often people have their own BI expertise in-house for them as well. And people love getting our dashboards, getting our data that's going into it, and then building on top of that to do even more interesting things. And it becomes the start of another process as well. Consumed in the browser, Power BI is just like any other dashboard. As Izzie showed, you just need to be able to filter data, follow your nose, click on some things and find what you're interested in. And then the last thing I would say on this is that we are doing our gamma release of Power BI next month. In that, we've got a lot of kind of tooltips and things on the page that explain what everything is, which hopefully alleviates some of that worry. But we're also going to support it with a bunch of sort of training content that we'll be rolling out alongside this. And Zoe, Lynn's, Katie, Nat, the CS team do a brilliant job of keeping people up to date with that stuff. And if you've got any questions at all, go straight to your customer success manager and they'll help you with it. Second issue we get a lot, or the second apprehension we get a lot is, well, if I make voice of customer transparent, will people then start questioning the way I've categorized things? Will they interpret my data differently? Will they think I'm rubbish at my job? And I think the answer to this is a resounding no. I think what we're seeing already from people who are creating their own definition-led themes and then putting that out in dashboards, and I have the exotic Dutch voice of a customer of ours who I know is on this call ringing in my ears when I'm seeing this, is that the beauty of definition-led themes is that they're much quicker, there's much less friction, they're easier for you to do, but also because you've then got the explanation of what's in and what's out, they're really, really transparent. And if you take a little bit of time to rebuild your classification model using definition-led themes, you are super confident about what your data is actually showing and what it isn't. And in that context, questions about themes become a useful opportunity to debate whether or not you were right in including this particular thing, or whether you need separate themes for different nuances. And all of those are really constructive conversations. People are much less likely to decide that you're wrong about something. So from a categorization perspective, it's definitely no. From an interpretation perspective, I think we've definitely seen already that this transparency builds confidence. People can understand, even if they disagree with you, they can understand what's in there. But more than that, I would say that the whole point of continuous improvement is it doesn't matter if you're wrong. Your goal as an insights manager is not to interpret the data in the right way first time. Your job is to see something in the data, build a reasonable hypothesis and test it, or see that somebody else is testing it. And you need to test that quickly. You need to then look at the data again. You need to change what you're doing based on that test, and start that cycle of kind of plan, do, review. And this is a massive mind shift away from kind of insight as the final product of something and into sort of customer feedback as an ongoing source for continuous steering of the organization. So you can be wrong, that's fine, as long as you're constantly correcting based on that data coming in. And then I think the last one we get is, if everyone can access the insights, what's my role? It's not my job to make changes across the business, and that's definitely the case. We think in this new world of continuous improvement, the role of an insights team becomes to move from gatekeeper to facilitator and orchestrator. So you're the architect of the system, you're not building every solution. You set up the standardized structure, you ensure data quality and consistency, you build the continuous improvement machine, and you make sure that people are executing on that machine. You're effectively enabling other people to be effective, which obviously, as we said at the start, massively multiplies your impact. So you're the connector between insights and actions, you're not the doer, and you become the guardian of that feedback loop. So did the hypothesis get tested? Did the data improve? What did we learn? What's next? And what's really interesting for us is it means that the currency of a business becomes learning. How fast you can turn insights into learning becomes the new thing that you can measure. And the more learning you do, the more you can improve customer experience, and the better all of your other KPIs will become. And it's a really leading indicator, the speed at which you can learn, which is wonderful. So what does it mean if you get it right? And I'll whistle through this because I want to leave as much time as possible for questions. We're seeing already people that were reporting spending up to 80% of their time in data and reports, talking about a 3 to 4x reduction in ad hoc requests coming in, which is massive. Think of the time back that equates to for you. People are saying, reporting that the number of people questioning the kind of black box generic categorization issues is reducing. People have more confidence in explainable, tailored insights. People are stopping coming in with questions about, like, how many complaints have we got about X? It was really interesting in the poll to see that this is still, for most people on this call, the predominant way that people are sharing insights in their organization. It's answering ad hoc questions that people have. And it turns that into helping colleagues see if the fix that they've put in place to solve that problem is working. And that's a much higher order question to answer. It sees insights as the output of your job ending, and insights being seen as the beginning of a measurable continuous improvement cycle. And then finally, it stops that whole kind of confirmation bias thing of people coming late to the data who already have their ideas made up in their head. Data is an inconvenient challenge to what they already want to do, and turns it into voice of customer as the starting point that leads to thinking, the first place they go when they think they might have an idea, or just something that's ambiently milling around in their heads that informs all of the little micro decisions that they made. And this is that shift from being gut-led to data-led. Sounds really easy and clean when we put it like this. We know that's not the case in practice. And I think it is worth saying that this stuff is messy. Customer feedback is messy. Wordnerds is never 100% accurate. There is always a degree of interpretation here. But hopefully what this process allows you to do is build a robust methodology and system that maximizes your chance of trying enough things on the questions that matter the most in order to improve the outcomes for your customers. And at the end of the day, that's what all of us are here for. Zoe, back to you.
Great, thanks, Pete. Yeah, interestingly, I think a couple of the questions that we've got so far speak to kind of other anxieties that might be apparent around this process as well. So just before we get to them, I'll give people a chance to add any other questions that they might have in the chat. And while we do that, just to highlight a few resources that we'll be making available to help in making the shift to the more democratization and strategic approach. So first off, Pete referenced just before our Power BI Gamma release. We've been doing a lot of learning around this at Wordnerds, a lot of customer testing, a lot of taking on board feedback. So thank you to everyone that's been involved in that. And hopefully you're already starting to see the benefit in terms of those more advanced dashboards. If your CSM hasn't been in touch about that already, I'm sure they will be, and that'll be in your hands properly over the coming months. We've also been working on a theme bank assessment framework. So if you've already got your theme bank set up in the platform, now with the Power BI release in mind is an excellent time to review this and optimize it. As we know, humans are weird and wonderful. The way we talk change, the things that we talk about advances as well. And it might be the case that your theme bank was set up a while ago and now you want to review what that is. Some of the tips that Izzie shared in terms of different themes working for different groups of people is really great to take on board here as well. So this assessment framework will help you look at what you've got now, where some gaps might be, and also tips for how you can optimize that. Related to that, we're also going to be running a series of workshops in March to help you make this shift in terms of optimizing your theme bank. So we'll be sending out invites for that in the next week as well. And then finally, all this will come together in a digital resource pack where we'll also chunk down some clips from this webinar and some key takeaways so that you can review, share, and you've got all the information in one place. So that will be coming up in your inboxes soon as well. So now what we'll do is just move into the Q&A. The first question we're going to come to is, thank you for your question, Sarah. Something I get asked is, our culture isn't data-driven. Will this actually get used? What's your take on that? I think this is a good question for you to take, Pete.
Oh, yeah. So I think nobody sets out not to be data-driven. I think we all want to be data-driven. So usually when I hear that, excuse me, usually when I hear that culture isn't data-driven, it's because either people don't know how to access the data, they don't understand the data when they access it, or they don't believe that what the data is telling them is true. So for me, this is the democratization piece and the transparency and confidence piece. I think with what we're trying to do, by getting this stuff out there in a way that literally you go to a URL and you can see the dashboard and you can filter a few things and you can look at that. We hopefully get around the accessibility thing. With the definition-led themes, we hopefully bring in the transparency so that people can understand how we've kind of categorized it. And then, in terms of then acting on it, it's up to them to then look at that data. They will hopefully believe it because they've understood what's going into it. And then the rest is on them. There's a limit to what we can do. We can lead the horse to water, but we can't make it drink. So, there's a point at which we've done everything that we can, or as insights people, I mean, we in the general sense, not just Wordnerds. But it is a great question. And I think in that situation, concentrate on the quality of data.
Yeah, great tips. Thank you, Pete. Next question we've got, I think this is a good one for Izzie. So thank you, Patricia. So Patricia asks, at the moment, we don't have capacity for a massive rebuild. This sounds resource intensive. What would you say to that, Izzie?
Yeah, I take your point, Patricia. I assume you're someone who's used our context themes historically. So just for reference, we're super proud of the context theme tech that we used to have to train themes. It used to take upwards of maybe 10 minutes to train a theme in the past, but now we're definition-led, we're down to, I think, between 2 and 4 minutes for a theme. So that process has really expedited how long it takes to create a theme and to create your theme bank as well. So it is much less labor than it used to be. And you can have sort of like, as many tabs open as you want in your browser and just have various themes running at once. So yes, there is some upfront work. It's much, much simplified. I think our latest stats say average training time for a given theme is down by 60% with definition-led themes. So it is much easier. But I think also there's benefits of spending some time setting this up, because in the long term, the time you will save from having this theme bank with clear definitions will pay dividends. So I would just sort of challenge back to you and ask, does that not justify a little bit of, resource intensive effort at the beginning? I think yes, it does.
That's great. Thank you, Izzie. It's such a good point. And I think as well, now that we've done a lot of the learning around Power BI, that output is there and kind of done for you for Wordnerds customers in terms of hopefully a ready to share dashboard. So yeah, thank you for that. Okay, cool. Just a question from Sophie, which we'll bring up. It's reassuring to know we're thinking in the right way about voice customer. It's quite the challenge to get the whole business thinking in the same way, especially around democratization and co-creation. Approach is led by a customer experience strategy, but it takes a long time to get everyone on board and longer still to get things embedded as the new way we do things around here. Now that I'm reading this, probably ask a question, and more. Thank you, Sophie, for just sharing this, because I think it speaks a lot to everything we've just said. But Pete, I can see that you're going to jump in with some thoughts.
Yeah, so I think what I would say to this is I don't want anybody on this call thinking that this is now the new gold standard of voice of customer and there are a bunch of people who are already magically here. We work with people at lots of different stages of maturity in voice of customer. We're bringing on new customers all the time. And it's a real journey for everybody. And like any organizational change, it starts with a few people grasping something, them telling some other people, them showing some other people, and people seeing the outcome of what they do. And that process takes a little bit of time. I think if I'm not wrong, Sophie comes from Town and Country. I think this is something that Theo did really, really well early on in Voice of Customer, where he took some really small projects and kind of ran a few things just to get people on board. And when people saw the power of this stuff, that's when VOC in Town and Country started to really become a thing that people valued. I think this is just the next iteration of that. It's definitely evolution, not revolution, and different people will arrive at it at different times. And I think that's okay. I don't think you're going to convert everybody all at the same time. Just keep fighting the good fight. And if you do it and it works, eventually people will cotton on to that. And that's when these things really take off.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Pete. Great. Well, I know we're at time, so just want to wrap up by saying thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. As we said, the recording will be in your inbox shortly. We'll be in touch in the next few days as well with the resource pack and that theme bank assessment framework, invites to March workshops. If you've got any questions that come to you after this as well, please do reach out, whether that's your customer success manager or Izzie or Pete. I'm sure they'd be happy to follow up with any questions as well. But thanks all for your engagement and questions today. Really great to have everyone, and have a great rest of the afternoon. Enjoy your pancakes as well. I've been inspired by the toppings, so I'm going to go to the shops and get some more for a variation. So yeah, thanks everyone.